Gatorade is the #1 proven electrolyte blend designed to hydrate better than water. So you can lose more sweat and raise your game. Gatorade, is it in you?
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro, Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome, everybody, on this humid, not so hot Sunday, last Sunday in July. This summer is going fast. I mean, they always go fast, but this one, especially the fact that Labor Day will be literally on September 1st this year. And look, Labor Day was basically invented by Grover Cleveland in order to win votes from unions by saying, hey, everybody gets a day off. We'll call it Labor Day. And then apparently he was not sober, and they said, oh, when should we do this? And he just kind of threw out like a random, hey, let's do it the first Monday of September, and that apparently is what ends summer. When, by far, September is the best summer month that we have. It's not as hot, it's still warm, but then everything ends after Labor Day as far as like schools start, NFL starts, and you're in fall mode, even though it's still like 85 degrees out. So don't even get me started on that. I guess you already have. Anyway, welcome. Thanks for joining. I got to play this clip from Sonny Hostin because I know it's The View, but I am so tired of this argument that Stephen Colbert is being taken off the air because Donald Trump ordered it, and it's an attack on democracy and free speech. Because literally, the guy was losing $40 to $50 million a year for CBS. He had a $130 million production budget. Now, think about this for a moment, okay? A talk show, whether you watch Carson, whether you watch Letterman, whether you watch Leno, Conan, Jack Parr, I don't care, all right? It's basically two people talking to each other at a desk. That's 95% of the show. Yeah, you have your stupid pet tricks like Letterman had or top 10 list that Letterman had. But, you know, for the most part, outside of the monologue, it's two people talking. Why do you need $130 million to produce a talk show, right? I am literally in my basement right now. I have one producer, and we do a pretty good show here, right? You have Colbert has more than 100 staffers. To do what? It's two people talking to each other. And profoundly liberal. When you have Bernie Sanders on 21 times, when you have Elizabeth Warren on 16 times, when you have Anderson Cooper, because he's Mr. Electric, 20 times, Jake Tapper 12 times, Gayle King 14 times. And meanwhile, like, actual comedians can barely get on this show because that wasn't the goal. The whole goal was myopic in terms of let's take down Trump. And it was so successful that Trump got elected twice, that Republicans took back the Senate, that they maintained their control of the House, that more governors in this country are Republicans than they are Democrats. And, oh, by the way, the Supreme Court is 6-3 conservative in theory. So, yeah, despite the fact that Colbert just did this every night thinking he was making a difference, actually it had the opposite effect. And he was losing boatloads of money for CBS and for Paramount. Yet, here's Sonny Hostin. Let's play the clip talking about how this is actually an attack on democracy and free speech. Oh, God, stop it. Cut one, go.
And so the First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason, and that is freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom to speak truth to power. If that is taken away, if the comedians are being attacked, then that means our Constitution is being dismantled. That's right. That means the very rubric of our democracy is being dismantled. Now,
understand this. Sonny Hostin has 2 TV contracts with CNN and with ABC for that kind of analysis. It is so utterly ridiculous. And I wish we could have like a time where The View actually had a conservative on there. I mean, put Megyn Kelly on there and she would destroy these people in about 8 seconds. It wouldn't even be fair. But give me somebody who could say, wasn't he losing $50 million a year for CBS? So maybe that's why he got canceled? No, of course not. That doesn't happen. And all the SEALs in the audience clap, 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 clap. Anyway, Hunter Biden is on some sort of revenge tour to avenge his father, which is utterly ridiculous. One of the most unpopular presidents ever. Easily the worst president of my lifetime. I mean, I wasn't really alive for Carter, but I understand that didn't go too well. But Biden, infinitely worse. When you think of 15 million people, at least, those are the ones we know about, entering the country illegally. When you think about inflation going above 9% because he passes something called the Inflation Reduction Act, which basically was, I don't know, the Green New Deal and spending a lot of money on things that we don't need. When you talk about everything as far as foreign policy, and Russia walks into Ukraine and the Afghanistan withdrawal. I mean, find me something, anything that Joe Biden did well during his presidency, because I can't find it. So easily an F- as far as his performance. Anyway, here we have Hunter Biden talking about, I can't get over this. He actually makes an argument that crack is actually safer than alcohol. This is cut 2. Go.
Does crack cocaine make you act any differently? No. Is it safer than alcohol? Probably. People think of crack as being dirty. It's the exact opposite.
If you're a Republican, you're like, please get this guy in the air more, because this is the Democratic brand at this point. In that same interview, Hunter Biden argued that illegal immigration on a mass scale is a good thing. It's good for actually the United States. And that probably explains Joe Biden's policy, since Hunter Biden apparently, along with his mother, Jill Biden, was running the country for the better part of 4 years. So that's why all these things happen. You literally have a former, possibly present crack addict making policy for the United States of America. And then to actually like make this argument that crack is safer than alcohol, talk to any crack addict. I'm pretty sure they will tell you something differently. And by the way, if we could have like a Hunter Biden Jasmine Crockett ticket, that would be awesome. Let's play cut 5 here, guys, because apparently she's now an election denier as well. Cut 5, go.
They're talking about they're starting to cheat. They've been cheating. Right now, we should be in power. We should be the ones that are controlling the House. The only thing that they know how to do is be crooked, draw crooked lines, and tell crooked lies.
Wow. So we have crack and crooked together as a ticket. Hunter, Jasmine, 2028. This is Joe Concha. This is the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Show. Back with more in just a moment.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
I was deep in it, gaming on Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7. Unfolding the screen made it twice as big and so immersive, I kinda lost myself. Might have trolled a little too close to the sun. Someone in the chat told me to touch grass, so I took my Z Fold 7 outside and kept playing. Still won, got a tan, and a nice little reset. Powerful processor, realistic graphics, you stay locked in, streak stays alive. Can your phone do that?
The new Galaxy Z Fold 7. Get yours at Samsung.com.
Learning through play starts with Lego Duplo. With Lego Duplo, toddlers can develop real-life skills while having fun with colorful bricks made just for them. Large, easy to grip, and safe to explore. When children express themselves with Lego Duplo, they build patience, problem-solving, and empathy. See your child learn perseverance and self-expression with everything they imagine and create. Visit lego.com/preschool to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco. Get the most out of your vehicle with GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco Original Equipment. The only parts designed, engineered, tested, and backed by General Motors. You can find your perfect fit for most makes and models and choose from 3 tiers of parts, including GM OE or gold and silver aftermarket parts. Visit gmparts.com for more information.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro, Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, everybody. So let's bring in our first VIP guest. That, of course, she is, Carol Roth, my favorite guest ever. Every time I fill in for anybody, in this case, Judge Jeanine, Carol's my first phone call. So here she is once again. Carol, I've buttered you up quite good. You better be good because there's a lot of hype behind this interview right now.
Well, I hope that my check clears for the great promotion, Joe.
Venmo, actually. We do Venmo. So this way it stays under the radar. But I want to talk to you about the economy. I see poll after poll showing that many Americans are not happy with Donald Trump's performance on the economy, particularly inflation. Then I see inflation's below 3%. I'm old enough to remember that Joe Biden, when he was in office, where inflation was above 9%. So why is there still these relatively poor numbers for the president when it appears that the economy is doing quite well when you consider the S&P, Dow Jones setting records now at this point? What's going on?
Yeah, well, I think that we have a bifurcation in the economy. There are people who are asset holders. Like you mentioned, the stock market continues to hit new highs. People who have homes where the prices are continuing to go up. And those asset holders have benefited from the asset inflation. For people who are just trying to get by, pay rent, they don't have the assets, they're trying to buy groceries, you still have the latent effects of the Biden era inflation because wages have not caught up with the inflation for the cost of living. So if you're trying to buy a house and you don't already have one, if you're trying to invest in the stock market and you see that it continues to be expensive and at all-time highs, and maybe you don't even have any extra cash because you're using it all at the grocery store, these are the latent effects of what happened over the last 4 years. And even though the rate of inflation has slowed, it's still an increase in prices. I think a lot of people, when they hear, slowing inflation, they think about disinflation, the price going down, and that almost never happens. It just means that the price of going up slows down, and then hopefully over time your wages catch up. So I do think there is this growing divide, not based on merit, but based on Fed policy and government policy, and that's creating a lot of frustration, and that's what you're seeing in the numbers.
And you're right about that, Carol, and we're talking to Carol Roth. Of course, she is the two-time New York Times bestselling author of You Will Own Nothing. That is out. Well, it's been out for about 2 years now that I think about it, but it's still selling quite well. But it was very, let's say, Nostradamus-like in terms of what's happening right now. You mentioned before, Carol, as far as like people unable to buy homes. I'm one of those people where I have a home right now. It was the starter home. That was the plan 13 years ago. And then the kids keep getting bigger and the house keeps feeling smaller. And now we want to move within our own community, but the prices are through the roof, yet, mortgage rates are still what they are. Is that going to change anytime soon? And Jerome Powell, I guess the question I have for you is he doing a good job as far as handling the Federal Reserve? Because it seems like he's always a day late and a dollar short.
Wow, that's a lot of questions.
Yeah,
I'll
sorry.
try to break them down into pieces to be digestible. So it is a really big challenge with housing because I would assume that you probably locked in a lower mortgage rate when we had that period of very low interest rates. Yeah, almost 15 years. So, not only do you not want to give that up, but if you were to give that up, like you said, then the house that you would try to buy is also at a higher price. So it's sort of a double whammy, if you would. Most of the time in the past, you would have one or the other. You would have interest rates would be high, but the houses would be reasonable, or vice versa. And now you have a bit of both. So, when does that change? I think that there are several catalysts. One, it depends on where you live. There are certainly areas like in Florida and Texas that were overbought with things like Airbnbs and people who are trying to make a profit, where you're starting to see a little bit more supply come into the market. I think that over time, the boomers who have a lot of the houses will eventually, make different choices. And hopefully, we'll have some deregulation that would help that as well. But it is going to continue to be a problem, I think, for many Americans for quite some time. As we get to Powell and the Fed, does the Fed do a good job? Well, it depends on what you think the Fed's objective is. If you think it is what it really is, which is to help the people in their club with the, at the expense of every other American, they've been doing a bang-up job. If it's to do their supposed dual mandate of stable prices, we know that was, they didn't do a very good job with that. And keeping employment on track, you could say, well, we have a lot of people who still aren't in the workforce. So I think that is going to be a challenge. And I have a recent article that's out that a lot of the good economic data that we started off talking about, things like, an increase in retail sales, as well as, not really the economy, but kind of market data, hitting all-time highs, makes it harder for Jay Powell to decrease interest rates, because it's saying, the higher interest rates aren't technically holding back the economy. But the other piece of that, Joe, is you have to remember that while they can control, the Fed can control short-term interest rates, things like mortgages, things like what we're paying on our government debt are actually controlled by the market. So I do think there are interventions that can happen. It's not going to be just from the Fed lowering interest rates, but all of those have consequences. And the biggest consequence of doing something, to change the tenor of what's happening with rates is inflation. And then we're going to go back to the problem we talked about before, which is that the cost of living for everyday Americans is going to continue to go up, and they're going to continue to be upset. And even if the house costs a little bit less, they may not have extra cash to invest because they're spending it all on their cost of living.
So if we had a President Carol Roth, would you replace Jerome Powell with, say, a Scott Bessent? Or who would your choice be as far as, if Powell's gone, then who would you put in there? And why?
So I would say if we're going with real choices, I'd say somebody like Judy Shelton, who is a fan of hard money and wants to bring back, hard assets like gold to back our currency. I think that would be a great choice. But really, the problem isn't the Fed chair, it's the institution. The institution has powers that it should not have, and we should be letting the market decide. That being said, we're in a really rough fiscal situation, and so doing that, would take some time. And the worst case scenario is if you, quote unquote, ended the Fed, and then their powers became usurped by Congress, and now all of a sudden you have the AOCs of the world setting monetary policy. So I think you have to be very careful what you wish for and really think through the problems and be very specific about the solutions, because change does not necessarily mean better.
Interesting. And then finally, Carol, we only have about a minute. So, Carol, we're now 6 months and about 6 days into Donald Trump's second term. What grade would you give him right now on the economy, on immigration, the border, and on foreign policy, in that order?
So I'm going to actually go out of order because I don't follow instructions, Joe. So I'm going to say the immigration and foreign policy is definitely Donald Trump's greatest strength. I give him, an A to A- to an A on immigration. I'd like to see more deporting, but I think that, he's faced a lot of barriers and he's done a great job, and shout out to Tom Homan on that. Same thing on foreign policy. He's been really strong. It was a really strong place for his first go around, and I think he's done a lot to de-escalate tensions and try to create a more peaceful situation in the world. A lot of work to be done, but I think he's done a really great job there. The economy, I think that I'm going to give him a C plus B minus because of the tariff insanity, which I think has been a distraction, has been a big tax for small businesses and consumers, and will continue to be so, and is distracting from some of the other things like tax policy, which finally got done, and deregulation that I think will boost the economy. So that's where I'd like to see things settle down and change and move away from this, day-to-day, we're on again, we're off again, like Ross and Rachel with the tariffs, and, really put in place, policies that are going to, supercharge growth and remove barriers for the backbone of this economy.
Interesting. And 15 seconds, I guess. So when you see trade deals with countries like Japan, does that then change your perspective on tariffs as far as Trump's go about on this? Because it seems like he's getting more deals now.
But the deals all require the United States to pay more, whether it's consumers or businesses. So any deals that don't eliminate tariffs and make it free on both sides, I don't think are a victory. I think there's a lot more to be done there.
She is Carol Roth. She is the author of You Will Own Nothing. I'm learning that quickly now. It feels like I don't really own a lot outside of this house I can't move out of. Carol, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure.
Indeed. And this is the Judge Jeanine, Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday show. Back with more in just a moment.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro, Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Running a business means I wear lots of hats. Luckily, when it's time to put on my hiring hat, I can count on LinkedIn to make it easy. I can post a job for free or pay to promote it and get 3 times more qualified candidates. Imagine finding your next great hire in 24 hours. 86% of small businesses do. With LinkedIn, I can also easily share my job with my network. No other job site lets me do that. Post your free job at linkedin.com/achieve. That's linkedin.com/achieve. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Leading a business today means constantly adapting. On the Executive Insights podcast, brought to you by AWS, global leaders share how they're making tough calls, testing bold ideas, and putting innovation into practice, generative AI included. If you're looking for real stories behind what's working, this is it. Subscribe to the Executive Insights podcast today, available now on all major podcast platforms.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro, Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday morning show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right, let's bring in our second VIP guest. He is Doug Goody. He obviously is VB to Wise. I mean, you've obviously heard him many times on the radio, because all of his clips go viral. So I'm like, I got to get this guy on this show on a Sunday morning because we're going to have some fun. Doug, how are you?
Joe, let's start with some good news. The 2025 NFL season has begun its initial descent. Yes. I'm going to need you to return your trade tables to the upright position and fasten your seatbelts, baby, because it's coming.
Wow. I think we have the Chargers and the Lions, right? That'll be the Hall of Fame game. I don't watch VB. I do not watch preseason. I can't. It's 1 or 2 possessions with your starters and then a bunch of guys wearing weird numbers for the rest of the game, and it's just something that I just can't do. But to your point, the season starts as early as it possibly can this year because Labor Day is always the first Monday of September, and this year it's literally September 1st. So we're going to have a season in about 6 or 7 weeks. But yeah, I mean, summer's going by fast. Who's your team, by the way? Your Patriots guy?
Well, I'll get to that in a second. First, I don't watch the preseason games either, but this is where X comes in.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't enjoyed the heck out of the Cleveland Browns unveiling their new helmet and the guy falling into the drink,
wow.
I mean, that video is unbelievable. The Jets fan base just absolutely losing their minds yesterday, as you would if you were a Jets fan. I mean, just go for the clips, Joe. That's all you need to know about preseason. Rodgers' first throw as a Steeler is a pick. I enjoy that kind of stuff.
And I'm watching right now. If you go to X right now and you go to NFL retweet, that's NFL RT, at NFL RT, you literally see a guy who is, I guess, in charge of unveiling the Browns' new helmet, and he literally, I guess this is on the Mistake by the Lake, and falls right into the water. And that wasn't planned. Like, this actually happened. Like, this is the Browns. This is a team that's not only never won a Super Bowl, has never been to a Super Bowl, which is a really hard thing to do in this league. But sure enough, here we are.
And look at the helmet. Like, for somebody in the organization said, let's build this giant bullpen-type car out of our new helmet, which has nothing on it. It's just another ugly shade of brown. And they're like, all right, we'll do that. But what's better is we'll have the photographer do like a 360, and as he comes around the outside, he's going to miss a step and in the drink. And he's released the footage of it where you see the camera go underwater and then pop back up, and you're like, if ever there was a symbolic moment for a franchise, this is it.
Wow. And the thing is, the helmet, I don't want to stick on this too long, but it looks black. It doesn't even look brown. I don't quite know what color that is, but that's definitely not brown.
I know Trump's taking on the Commander's nickname, and that's fine. I would more like him to say, we're going to right some wrongs the other way. Cleveland, you are ordered to change your nickname because the Browns is just an awful nickname that doesn't lend itself to any kind of logo. There's a bunch of those in all of the leagues that these teams need to be changed. Like the Minneapolis Lakers, I got the LA Lakers. Really where? I don't see many lakes when I'm out there.
That's a great point. I guess the Browns were named after Paul Brown, right? And that's like he literally named the team after himself.
Name the field after him, but let's go with the Rock and Rollers or do something so we actually can have some imagery with that team.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up as far as like Trump going after the Commanders, because that has been stuck in my craw for, I guess, 12, 13 years now. I remember I was on CNN, this is before I signed with Fox, and I had to debate some liberal, I forget who it was, on the Redskins' name being changed. And he's like, it's insensitive. This is an insult to Native Americans. And I just brought up poll after poll at the time showing that Native Americans were not offended by the name, that 90% of Redskins season ticket holders wanted Redskins kept as the name, but a bunch of white guys, I guess, on social media and legacy media demanded that this happened. Then suddenly sponsors got spooked, and then the Redskins became, at first they were the Washington football team because they couldn't think of a name. Then they went with the Commanders, which is utterly ridiculous. I think that if I were to bet, VB, as far as if the Redskins are going to come back like full uniform, full name, I think it's going to happen. I think that there's such demand for this, and woke is so dead that Trump is going to get his way on this one, and no one is going to really fight back, because to fight the woke fight at this point is a losing argument on basically everything.
Well, can we get the Utah hockey team to go back to that versus the Utah Mammoth? Because I'm not loving the Mammoth thing at all.
Oh.
And they were going to do the Yeti, but apparently the Yeti thermos company said they would sue for copyright, and a judge said they would win. I'm like, come on. Is this where we've gotten in 2025?
Jeez. That's insane. I didn't know about about the Utah hockey team, which is interesting. Better than being in Phoenix, which you can't play hockey in the desert. It's just utterly ridiculous.
By the way, I know we don't need to focus on sports forever, but we're not going to let the moment pass without talking about Hulk Hogan, who passed this week, and just what an ad. I know you had the good fortune of meeting him at the RNC last year, and there are giants in industry, and then there are guys that just are above everybody else, and all of those guys that are on the next rung go, yeah, but that's the guy. I mean, a lot of the heavy metal guys were doing this with Ozzy last week as well, but Hulk Hogan, I mean, it's hard to overstate the influence that guy had on an industry that in no way should ever have become what it did, but we're the better for it, as it turns out. And man, did we all look up to that guy at some point in our lives.
So, yeah, that's the thing. And you mentioned how I met him at the RNC last year. The way I met him was quite interesting. So Fox, basically, like all the other TV networks, we were given a suite, right, to broadcast from, and it overlooks the arena. And there's like a makeshift green room where you wait to go on. I think I was either going on with Jesse Waters or on Hannity. And I'm sitting and I guess my back was turned to him. I didn't realize he walked into the room, and this guy just starts squeezing me, and I literally heard my bones crack, like like a chiropractor. I'm like, who is that? Because there's no one really at Fox, I guess, outside of Tyrus that could do this to you. And I just heard this voice right in my ear. He goes, "Brother, I love your work. I watch you all the time." I'm like, oh my God, it's Hulk Hogan. Now, VV, here's the funny part about the story. 3 days before that, and this is the first thing I said to him, my son was 8 at the time, we watched Rocky III, and he was Thunder Lips. And it was like, it's one of the best scenes ever in any movie where Rocky is, Stallone is short in real life, and then he's up against Hulk Hogan, who's immensely tall and huge, and they do this charity fight, and it gets completely out of control. It's the funniest thing you'll ever see. But he couldn't be any more like gracious and any more personable and funny, and I can't believe he seemed, I wrote at the time, I think, like, boy, he's really in great shape. And to hear that he died just at 71 is just, it's between that and Ozzy and Malcolm Jamal Warner, drowning accidentally. I mean, it's been a tough week if you're an 80s kid.
I keep telling people the lead singer of Golden Earring died last week, and nobody heard about it because too many other people that have major significance passed away. It's too much. We got to hit the pause button on this stuff. I'll just say this about Hulk Hogan. We interviewed him once when I was doing TV in Boston, and somehow a mouse had popped its head up in our studio. And, Joe, it's one of those moments. We had Hulk Hogan chasing a mouse, trying to scoop him up in a trash barrel. And I thought, I've done something right to be able to witness this because it was just this giant of a man chasing this little thing. He didn't get him, as it turned out, but it was just too funny. And then he comes back to the set and he goes, "What the hell was I just doing?"
So we have to do some politics, VB, because there's just it's supposed to be like the dead time of year, late July. Right. Congress is home, basically, right? It's like, all right, nothing going on. No, actually, Hunter Biden is the gift that keeps on giving for Republicans, and here he is. I want your reaction to this right out of it, so I won't say a word. Basically saying that crack is, safer than having a beer. This is cut whatever. Go.
Does crack cocaine make you act any differently? No. Is it safer than alcohol? Probably. People think of crack as being dirty. It's the exact opposite.
Go ahead. Take it.
We've gone from Nancy Reagan saying just say no to drugs to it's not bad. It's okay. You're not, it's not worse than alcohol. This whole Hunter Biden thing fascinates me. Like, did he go rogue and he's now booking interviews for himself, or is there some part of the Biden machine, insofar as there is such a thing, saying, let's put Hunter out at this late stage and let's have him rewrite some history. Let's have him be the one that says Joe was on Ambien during the debate. Hadn't heard that for a year now.
Yeah.
But now Hunter's going to claim that. And by the way, on that one, Joe, one of two things is true. Hunter is well aware of it because he was slipping his dad some stuff, or he's making it up and it's not true. Or the third possibility is that not only was he on Ambien, but there was all sorts of stuff being given to the president that night. I mean, everybody was joking the next day. How many Red Bulls did he have before they started to try and prop him up? Because everybody knew the 90 minutes was going to be too much. We'll never know what was in Joe Biden's system that night. Ambien wouldn't have been high on my list, but now it's there courtesy of the great diplomat Hunter Biden, who every interview he's ever done has had the opposite effect of what he thought it would do. And yet Joe Biden would still tell you that Hunter Biden is the smartest man he's ever known.
Oh, and here's the thing. I'm not a doctor, but I am married to a doctor. And I asked her, I go, is it a good idea to give an 81-year-old Ambien when they have sleep apnea? Because that can't be good, right? And she said, look, the problem with this is that if he's groggy, because Ambien's strong, right? If he gets up in the middle of the night and, has to use the bathroom, which a lot of 81-year-olds have to do, there's a very good chance that he could either fall, break a hip, or worse, right? So you don't want to give anybody with sleep apnea at that age that kind of drug because there's no positive effect. Hunter also said during that interview that he was tired, Joe Biden was, before that debate because he just got back from Europe and he was traveling around the world, and anybody would be tired in that situation. The problem is that Joe Biden did, 11 days before the debate. Then he went to Camp David, and literally in the New York Times, of all places, reported that he had a designated nap time for all the days that he was there. So he was well rested. Maybe his brain just turned applesauce. Can we just consider that? But this is the thing. This is like the Biden revenge tour. And at one point, BB, we had Hunter Biden using a scenario where if he were president, he would do this on illegal immigration, which basically is I would allow everybody to come in because that's what my dad did. It's incredible that this guy is going to get he will get airtime. In other words, like if Hunter Biden comes to you and says, I want an interview, I don't care if you're Fox News or MSNBC,
right,
you're going to give it to him. But this is bad for the Democratic Party because all they want is for the Bidens to go away completely, and they just don't want to do it. Every time they try to get out Democrats, the Hunter Bidens and Joe Bidens and Jill Bidens pull them back in.
It's so true. And as good as Tulsi Gabbard was last week when she scorched earth Hillary, my one wish was that when she was listing all of the stuff that ended with it and she was on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers, I almost wish she said, although we did not see any reports of her using Ambien, just to put in that little needle twist, you know?
That would have been great. So overall, the media is not covering this whole revelation by Tulsi Gabbard. As far it was with hard evidence, as far as John Brennan, former head of the CIA, James Comey, former head of the FBI, Barack Obama, the former president of the United States, as far as them obviously manipulating intelligence around Donald Trump and the whole Russia collusion thing, and basically making sure, or at least tried to, that he wouldn't win the 2016 election. I guess the media is never going to change.
Listen, this week was loaded with, quotes that we can have a good laugh at. Everybody's got a laptop. Hunter was funny. Jeff Daniels saying that Kamala would have been Lincoln. We all enjoyed that one, right? But the one that really is damaging and that I can't believe people aren't making more of was Brennan saying, when he's looking at some of the Russia information and they're saying this stuff isn't right, and he says, yeah, but it rings true.
Rings true.
That one is crazy. Here's a guy that had all the power and all the influence and could make 51 guys sign a letter. And he was acknowledging that it wasn't true, but it rung true. And so that was good enough. Let's go with it. There's got to be consequences for that stuff. We can't have one administration putting out misinformation that tries to bring down another administration. And it is mind-boggling that no one in any of the liberal media is at least going, we should at least kick the tires on this, right? I mean, we got to do something. No, they're like, no, forget it.
They just want that next contract. I mean, they're just saying whatever they think their bosses want them to hear and what their audience wants them to hear instead of what they should hear. And on that note...
They're too busy on the Colbert picket lines.
Oh, we didn't even get to that. Yeah, lose $40 million a year, but it's all about free speech and saving democracy, I guess. No, you lose $40 million a year, you're gone. It's that simple. VB the Wise, thanks so much for joining us. We'll have you back again soon.
Always, Joe. Thank you.
Giddy up. And this is the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Show. We wrap this puppy up in just a moment.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I'm Cindy Lauper with fellow Cosentix advocate, Chef Michelle Bernstein.
We'll share our experiences with plaque psoriasis, with psoriatic arthritis, and Dr. Panico will talk about the possible connection.
Cosentix secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis 300 milligram dose and adults with active psoriatic arthritis 150 milligram dose. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentix. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur.
Learn more at 1-844-COSENTIX or Cosentix.com/Cindy.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states. At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 40% off site-wide, plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
Class is now in session, and the UPS Store is here to help you ace arriving on campus. Our certified packing experts can pack everything you need, from desktops to decor. Plus, when you pack and ship with us, you get our exclusive pack and ship guarantee. Your items arrive safe or your money back. Restrictions and limitations apply. To get a 20% off packing coupon and for full details, visit theupsstore.com/packing.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro, Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So, I come from this perspective. I'm called by my so-called critics on social media as a staunch conservative. Nah, I'm basically a common sense guy. I guess common sense is now staunch conservative because if you believe that, for instance, men shouldn't compete against women in sports like boxing and swimming and track and so on. I think that's common sense. I don't think that's a conservative value. And I also think that if you're going to get stuff from the government, you probably should show at least, an urgency to work. I don't know. Seems like a pretty common sense idea. In fact, let's hear from one staunch conservative, apparently, a president, former president, at the time, was in office for 8 years. He resided over a bustling economy and foreign policy. For the most part, we were at peace. And this is why he won 2 elections quite easily, especially his reelection. Anyway, let's go back to 1996, shall we? Which was, if you want to feel old, that was nearly 30 years ago. Here is President Bill Clinton on the need for welfare reform. This is cut 4. Go.
From now on, our nation's answer to this great social challenge will no longer be a never-ending cycle of welfare. It will be the dignity, the power, and the ethic of work. Today we are taking an historic chance to make welfare what it was meant to be, a second chance, not a way of life. This bill will help people to go to work so they can stop drawing a welfare check and start drawing a paycheck.
Wow. Good speech. And it's all true. Can you find one Democrat out there that will say those words today? Because you can't. Impossible. Because they don't exist anymore. The extreme wing of the Democratic Party is winning the argument right now, unfortunately. And we have these social media warriors like AOC, Bernie Sanders, Eric Swalwell, Adam Schiff, all making similar arguments as far as, nope, actually the government is better suited to take care of you than you are of yourself. And when you think about 2028, and you say, well, Democrats, they're going to learn from 2024, and they're going to make sure that they nominate some sort of moderate to be on the ticket, like an Andy Beshear in Kentucky, who's at 60-something% approval in a red state, right? Or Jared Polis in Colorado, who also has a relatively high approval rating in Colorado, or Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, also popular in a purple state that is Pennsylvania. They won't do it. I saw this movie before. You all did. It was 2020. It was Michael Bloomberg, who ran this city quite well. Right? You yell at your radio right now and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. I lived in New York under Bloomberg. I worked in New York under Bloomberg. And all I know is that it was impossibly safe, even at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was run like a business. And he basically adopted Rudy Giuliani's crime policies as far as being tough on crime, and then as far as the economy for the most part. And people were mad at him as far as like, hey, you're going to ban smoking in bars? Well, that probably have saved, thousands of lives. Because if you don't smoke and you're in a restaurant, or you're a bartender for that matter, and you got to inhale and secondhand smoke, I guarantee you there are more than a few lung cancer patients that probably got lung cancer as a result of being in places where they weren't participating in an act that literally was killing them. So I agreed with that, actually. And you can say that's government overreach. BS, actually. That is a health issue, and he did the right thing there. The point is that Bloomberg ran for president in 2020 and was eviscerated by the far left inside of like a month, where he had to drop out despite spending more money than anybody on that campaign. So I think if they try to put a moderate in there, it's just not going to work. It's not going to happen. The AOCs of the world will dominate media time because they say the most provocative things possible, right? They're emotional, right? And in the end, I think she gets the nomination. And you can say, oh, no, we're in trouble as a country. She will lose 46 states, all right? I say maybe takes California, Illinois, maybe New York. I can't really think of any others, Hawaii, Massachusetts, but otherwise you run a far left, extremist. And this is going to be a horrible election for Democrats. I don't care who gets put up on the Republican side. It'll probably be J.D. Vance. And this guy is as sharp and smart as anybody that we've ever seen in any situation. He will wipe the floor, if it's not Marco Rubio, with any Democrat that comes from the far left. But that's where that party is going, and that's why they are polling right now at 19%. 19% approval, according to Quinnipiac University of New York. Anyway, this is Joe Concha. Thanks so much for joining us today. This has been really fun. We'll be back next Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. The Judge Jeanine Tunnel for Towers Foundation Sunday Show. It's been a blast. I'll see you when I see you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Sunday Morning Show. You can hear Judge Janine's Tunnel to Towers Sunday Morning Show Sunday mornings at 10. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?